Okay. I'd like to call the October 9th, 2024 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Mr. Pinio, do we have need for a non-public session?
Madam Chairperson, we do, under advice from legal counsel, without them being present, lowercase l.
Thank you. We have no minutes tonight. We have no public hearing. We have no bulk. We have no board or committee appointment. So we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is our budget hearing. And it is, we are going to start with the police department.
Okay, so the police department, under the police department tab, I'll quickly summarize the police department proper's budget and hand it over to the chief and captain. The department is made up of 2 administrative staff, an executive assistant, 10 sworn officers, 3 part-time. We currently have 3 vacancies within the department, total head count of 18. When you look at the budget as compared to the 2024 approved budget, benefits and salaries is currently down 2.1%. Operating budget is up 23.9%. The overall budget is down 0.6%, or $12,780. I will note, and the captain and chief will be able to speak to it, they did move an item from the police department proper budget into communications. With that, I'll hand it over to the chief and the captain.
You guys have any questions, we'll go right down the line and start from there.
Okay, I'll start with the 100 series. Anybody have any questions? I do, and I'm just asking the questions for information. I noticed that your salary line went down about 76,000, and your wage, hourly wage, went up about 65,000. Was that a change in a position?
Yes, we used to have that lieutenant's position, which he retired, and we did not fill that back up, so we switched it into an officer's position.
Okay,
Right
good, thank you. Does anybody else have any, one other one. Your administrative assistant at times works 47 hours. I'm assuming that her overtime is in the overtime budget, because 35 plus 12 makes 47.
I don't get paid.
No.
I don't get paid
The
overtime.
12, I think, is per month.
Yes.
That's when she covers the commission
Oh.
meetings.
12 weeks, oh, only 3, okay.
She works like 3 hours every month.
Okay, I did, no, that's hourly rate, hours. If I go down the hours, she's 35, and then she's 12 when she is the commission salary. I add that up to 47. And all I'm
It's per
asking.
month. I would say those 2 columns just under the commission secretary are backwards.
Are what?
Backwards.
Backwards.
Backwards, okay.
Thank you.
That would make sense.
Thanks, Casey.
Okay. Anybody else have 100 series? 200 series? $300 series?
I have a 300-400 combination question.
Why don't you start with your 300, and then we get to 400, we'll do 400.
Okay, so what I see is 381, outside services, vehicle maintenance, tires, not performed by highway, and then vehicle maintenance for outside vendors. Just wondering why there's 2 different lines for vehicle maintenance.
It's actually reversed.
That's reversed.
Yeah, so the outside services is actually outside services, and the vehicle maintenance, that outside vendor, just cross it out. That's for our public works. I mean, our town garage.
Okay, so cross that out.
Wanda, you got an extra crayon. Mine disappeared.
Yeah, I can give you an extra crayon. I have a question on 380, all traffic solutions. What's that?
It's all our radar signs.
Radars.
And the radar trailer.
And so it was in communication, it's coming over here. Okay.
Yeah, just fit better over here in
Okay.
the police department budget.
Anybody else, 300? 400? 500?
Didn't Brian have a 400?
I asked, it was a 4 and 3 combined. It was 381 and 430, which were both as vehicle maintenance. They said to remove 430.
No, no,
No,
Just,
where it says outside vehicles, vendors, it shouldn't say that.
Yeah,
okay,
just cross
get
out
rid of
outside vendors.
okay, 400 and 500. Everybody, okay? 600? 700? 800? And that's that budget.
Okay, so moving on to communications. The communications budget is made up of 5 full-time employees, 4 part-time employees, with 1 part-time open position. The salary and benefits is currently up 1.5%. The operating budget is up 19.4% for an overall increase of 3.2%, or $18,241. I would note, and I should have noted with the police department proper budget, both of these labor lines will have a standalone warrant article for the collective bargaining agreement, which we're currently negotiating.
Okay, we'll start off 100 series, 200 series, 300 series, 341. There's a large increase in phone and internet. Is particular reason why?
She'll be able to explain.
The phone budget before this, I guess, was what the town's budget was First Light.
Just so you know, this is Supervisor Mia Lyons
Aye.
for Communications.
I can't, the way that it was before is that we took over, I guess, just recently, the town phone lines, correct, Sherry? We didn't manage the phone line before, so we had no choice of, we don't see the bills or where anything is, so it is what it is. We are in the process of upgrading the phone lines, switching carriers, and that will go down.
Okay, so this is because you're switching carriers and upgrading.
We haven't switched carriers yet, or anything. This has nothing to do with the new carrier. This is still what the town has for us to have, and we have to just have it.
So last year, remember we went through this and we were down, we went to the default budget, but we tried to add money to this line due to the fact of what the monthly was. We did add a few. We didn't add the total amount. We got up to about 8,500. I think we needed 1,400 at that time. But then we had the default budget, so it went back down to 5,760. So we're trying to get back up to the original amount of 15,000.
If I may, Linda. So the reason the town gave it over to you is because you didn't come onto our phone system, and you were going to go buy your new phone system once the public safety building was complete. And also, I believe like their line items went up like $100 a piece, and you also need to have some copper lines, I believe. So
That's correct.
there was a lot of change. Hopefully, as they say, when the building's done and the new phone is put on, this will go down. But for now, that is an unfortunate increase.
So, Linda?
Okay, yep.
Yeah, we heard a similar thing from Barry, that he had to have landline service from the copper company. Is there a statute that requires you to have landline service from copper company?
Certain lines were mandated by the state, like our 911 lines had to be copper. They couldn't go to fiber, but they just changed that, and we now can go to fiber for 911 lines. What the electric department has, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Fax lines have to be copper still.
Have to be copper.
And it's like, it's security requirements for the public safety side of it. I don't know about the electric department side.
Okay, that's, okay.
Well, part
Whatever the
of,
state says, that's just, to me, that's 18th century stuff, and they probably should think about
I find
changing
that a
it.
lot of alarm companies are requiring copper as well still, and they haven't
Gone.
made that move.
Okay, all right, so you're stuck with a big number here.
Actually, they just said we don't have to use copper lines anymore for 911.
Yeah.
So we're going to be going to fiber. Once the public safety phone lines get swept over to the new service, we'll be all fixed.
Got it. Okay.
And the good part about this telephone lines, this is for the entire building, so this is going to be police and fire
They stand fire.
Yeah.
as we move forward.
So maybe we should move it to the public safety building at some point. Sorry about that.
Yes.
I wonder if that doesn't make sense if it's for both. Next year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
All right, any other questions? 300? 400? 600?
I'm just curious, do you use your own propane company, or is it part of the same contract that we do for the town?
Same contract with the town.
Same contract as the town.
I think that was the 600 series. Everybody okay? 700? 800? Any other questions? Paul?
I have a few. So Mia, thanks for what you're doing. If you had a pie in 100%, how much of that 100% are you taking in calls for Wolfeboro Waters and all those other things you got volunteered to sign up to do? Small number, big number,
Large
moderate?
number, extremely large number.
Big number?
Yes, we're
10%?
after hours, during business hours, it all comes to central dispatch.
Okay, okay. The reason I ask, and if you wouldn't mind, Linda, I have a couple of questions, but I'll make a comment first. Last year, and prior to that, one of our state representatives has been reminding us that Carroll County has a dispatch function. And last year, we saw a 27% increase in the bill that we get from Carroll County. I don't know what percent went into the dispatch function or not. But the dispatch function up there claims to be full service, 24 hours, 7 days a week, emergency telecom center, serving 36 agencies, law enforcement, fire, EMS for the county. I guess my question goes to either Jim or to the chief. Because we don't use the dispatch function at Carroll County, do we get like a tax credit from those folks?
I can answer that because I went with the prior town manager and tried to argue that case
In 2013?
somewheres in that area, and the answer was no.
Okay.
You have to pay for the county. If all the towns who had 24-hour came out, the
Yeah.
county couldn't function. That's what they told us at that time.
So let's assume, just for the sake of the discussion, that that continues to be true. So I don't know how much that bill is that we get, that apportionment of and I think that the county bill was $3.5 million to the town of Wolfeboro to pay for the county operation. Is there an opportunity to talk about whether we're getting a benefit or whether we should think about, changing our dispatch model? Are you folks thinking about or had conversations about that?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Is it the conversation with the county as to whether we get a rebate? We don't.
So the answer is no, we don't.
So.
We pay whether we use it or not.
Right.
So I was trying to figure out if we get a benefit by a discount or some kind of a rebate. We don't. So now the question is, we have a payment that we're making for a service we're not consuming. And the question is, should we, and it's an indelicate question, but should we have a conversation with the county about them taking over the dispatch function or not?
I don't know if that's a premature question at this point without getting more data.
I'm just teeing it up. I'm not saying we should have an answer here tonight. That would be patently not smart.
I think it's a fair question.
Is it worth looking at?
Yeah, we've had conversations about it. And the question was whether we use them at night, not during the day, and we've had all sorts of different conversations. But I think what Paul's saying is it's time to have another conversation.
And hey, look, I mean, what happened in the past, maybe for the future. All I'm reading is full service, 24 hours, 7 days a week, emergency, overseen by a lieutenant, 1 working supervisor, with 10 full-time, 4 part-time communication specialists. Is it time to at least have a conversation as to whether it makes sense to look at that function or not?
I think it's appropriate to think about it. I think it's appropriate to ask some questions of people.
Right.
I don't know if it's appropriate to do anything about that.
That would be,
without that
again,
data. And I think it would take a
Chief,
while.
I'm not asking you to give me a decision, or
Okay.
Mia, because that would be, that would be such a quick kick, inappropriate thing to do. But if it's worth kind of saying, what's the puts and takes, the goods, the bads, and this doesn't make sense, and try to, I would just counsel to stay away from, well, that's not the way we've done it in the past. I just take a fresh look at it, and if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. All I know is that we're paying for a service we're not consuming. Linda tried 9 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, with somebody else to get it sorted out. We were told, tough, you can't do that. So we should either say, we sign up or we get a rebate, or we stay as is.
And is
three
this something you want in this budget year, or is it something that we have time to work?
Your call.
I think it would be appropriate to at least use the upcoming year to accumulate that data.
Yeah.
And I would obviously like to work with Mia.
Yeah.
And present the board the rationale.
So at the risk of standing by myself here, I would not support any, I'm going to use a business term, plug that we'd put into the budget by saying, we're assuming the number's going to go up or down. Let's just plug the budget. I would not support that. So that's kind of my polite way of saying, take the time you need to get it done correctly.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
Any other board member? Dave?
Yeah, but you also asked her a question, Paul, about how many hours or how much of her dispatch is spent dispatching our personnel, not just police or fire, but other departments. And I think her answer was certainly more than 50%.
Well,
So what do you, I'm not sure what you're trying to do, but I don't think we're going to get rid of the dispatch center, personally, because her job or her people dispatch a lot more than just police and fire. So,
Well, let me kind of get a consensus. Would the board like to have a discussion and have the police look at options around the communication and whether we could use the sheriff's department for any of our communication? Take a look at that. And if the majority like it, then that's, if one person wants it, then
Can I just say one thing?
yeah.
sure.
Just the electric department alone, whether it's after hours or not, is an enormous amount of phone calls that comes into the center. That alone, they don't have a call service. So whether it's during business hours, non-business hours, that alone can warrant over 1,000 calls in as little as an hour, 2 hours. So it's not, like you said, it's not just police and fire. And that's not including other town departments, Parks and Rec, the ski area.
Wolfeboro Waters.
Highway department, water department, all those other
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
I don't have a problem asking this question again. I recall we went through this, I think shortly after I got on the board a while ago, and I think those same questions came up and the same answers there, that there's so much other than police and fire that does run through the dispatch. If I recall also, I think there are only 2 towns in Carroll County that don't use it, or at least Southern Carroll County, I believe it was us in Wolfeboro.
That's correct. That was the other
Dispatch
town.
there.
Yep.
And I remember that question was asked, if we get a kickback or reduction because we don't use that
Yep,
service.
that's what we were asking for.
Right.
And I believe some part of the answer was that, the hours and everything that's spent here in Wolfeboro now would have to be added to what they're already doing at the county level, which I would imagine would have a cost increase on that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, you're probably not going to save much anyway, even if they did do a changeover, because they're going to have to absorb that amount of work and add on to personnel and everything there. So, but I'm okay with asking that question and updating the answers that we got 10, 11 years ago, whenever it was.
Brian?
I would say that the chief should use his discretion and do a moderate dive into this topic. I don't think he should dedicate hours and weeks and months for something that may not bring anything to fruition. But a quick look and maybe a call to the county, yeah, that would be fine. But again, it shouldn't be burdensome to him.
Casey?
My question is for me. Do you keep track of how many calls are water, sewer, electric? You do?
Yeah, so we have to do is we log it as it's called other town department. So if we have to go into a recording mode, an automatic answering, because we can't answer all the phone calls, there's a counter. So every time somebody goes to that recording, I get a counter.
But does your counter tell me how much is electric, how much is water, how much is
We
sewer?
only go into that automatic mode if it's like a power outage in town. That's the only time we go into it. So if they're calling from a power outage, they have to press number 1. So if they press number 1, that's what the counter starts counting.
So the data is not available by the 3 enterprise funds?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I would think it would make sense for us to look at it again to justify to the public why we are keeping the communication center and why we are comfortable paying for something we're not using. I think that would make sense. And I agree with Brian, it doesn't have to be real in-depth. I think it would be pretty obvious after a while exactly what the cost figures are. Yep.
And I just have a point.
To the microphone, Sean?
John, you got to come
Not to the microphone.
If I remember correctly, I thought that Rockingham County, if I remember, I've been gone a long time, they actually bill, so they don't just take taxes for that, for the dispatch. They bill the towns that use it. So your Derry, Londonderry, they don't pay, for that service. And that gives, different towns, like in Raymond, we had our own dispatch center. We dispatched for Deerfield, Candia Fire and Rescue and charged them a fee. So they decided, the selectmen in those towns, hey, they didn't want to pay the county for that service. They paid the town of Raymond for that service. So, that is an option. Now you want to have more work, but, I don't think it's no advantage for Tuftonboro to come here because they're not paying for the service now. And so the model here in this county always kind of bothered me because really what that dispatch is, it's the dispatch for the sheriff's department. We have our own. They have their own. They don't pay for it. We pay for it. So really, they're hitting you twice. So what I'd like to see is maybe we as a town could go to the delegation and say, hey, maybe you shouldn't just be taxing everybody for that. You should be charging the towns that use the service. Yeah. And that way, we wouldn't pay.
Yeah.
So that's maybe an approach we could possibly take to, keep what we need here. Because, there's so many advantages to having the dispatch center here. And just the firsthand knowledge that Mia and her people have, they pass that stuff on to the fire chief, to the police chief when there's power outages and there's water outages. So everyone knows that all that information in real time, which they wouldn't get from the county.
Yep.
Unguided by any relevant data here, if somebody were to say, you don't use, you don't pay, I'd be happier than a clam.
Yeah,
But we don't have that model.
Yeah,
And
right.
It's whether you use it or not, you pay.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't like that model.
I don't
That's
see
a
them.
bad idea.
I don't see them doing that. But
Yeah.
maybe they should charge. They should actually just start charging a fee to the towns who use it.
Right.
Yeah,
He just got real popular.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. If somebody would say, you no use, you no pay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right.
But there are
But it
only
doesn't
2
work that way.
towns.
And so, there's this little $3.6 million that just comes floating in that goes on the tax bill. And some portion of that is for a service we're not using, but we're paying for. I just want to understand we clear that account.
Right.
Okay?
So that would be a good thing to know and I don't know if we could ever find out, of our taxes that we pay to Carroll County, how much of it is specifically for the dispatch center? I'm sure that they don't, they should, but I'm sure they don't itemize it and say this portion of your tax bill to Carroll County is for dispatch operations. Because that would be the only number. If the chief could find anything, that would be the only number that I think that I would be really interested in.
I would ask the board for a date. You would like me to report back whatever I can find? Just to give me a target?
All right, board members, shall we say after the first of the year?
90 days?
You know, I mean, we're not in a rush. It wouldn't affect it until the next budget.
Of course.
So I would say after the new year sometime.
1.
You give you, and we may want to look at trying to go back and trying to not be charged for it. If there's only Wolfeboro and Wolfeboro,
Right.
we could, or get a discount. That's what we tried the last time, and that, to me, may make the most amount of sense than getting rid of our communication center, but try to, again, get them to give us a discount because we don't use it.
And I think there's more than 2 towns. Conway has their own dispatch. They don't use the county either. And a couple other more than, just to be more
I
than 2
think
towns.
Conway uses their own.
But I think all 3 of those agencies do provide emergency backup in case Carroll County has a disaster of some type and they cannot dispatch.
We're their backup too.
They'll rely on Wolfeboro, Wolfeboro, and Conway to provide services until whatever's cleaned up in the
If
county.
I could, my counsel would be, end of the first quarter. By that time, we've done the budgets, we've had our little thing, nobody can plug things in that shouldn't get plugged in, and it'll give you guys, so somewhere between beginning of the year and the first quarter,
So
take your time.
our dispatch would never go down unless, there's got to be an unless the system just had a,
Well, we've had situations, even since I've been here, that we have not been able to use the board because of all that construction happening, and Carol took care of it for us. And that's how,
Truck hits
It's
pole,
supposed to go.
pole comes down, you're off the air, right? You
No,
know,
we still can
unless you
No.
have wireless backup, right?
they had to literally
yeah, they have wireless backup.
power
in
us
here.
down for a short amount of time, but we had backup in place.
Yep.
In fact, you went up to Carroll County.
Yep.
So it would-
I will get you a
Yeah,
Yeah, you know how you
comprehensive
use it
report.
and
What
whether
you
it
really
makes
want.
sense.
yeah.
Thank
If you had a catastrophic failure of your unit itself, then Carroll County would support us.
We're safe.
Would back you up. Okay.
Okay? All right, we'll go to animal control.
So the animal control budget overall is down 1.84%, $481 on a budget of $26,543.
100 series, 200 series, 300 series, 500 series, 700 series, 800 series. Any questions on anything to do with the police?
They do not have any capital outlay.
I'm sorry, Casey.
They do not have any capital outlay.
No capital outlay.
You will likely, however, see probably 2 warrant articles from that agency.
One for car?
One is car.
Yeah.
We're looking at leases, and we're looking at one, which is depending on which option that we're going to look at.
Okay.
And the other one is body-worn cameras.
Body cam. Okay. All right.
And we-
Is it the wrong time to ask a question about offsetting those body cameras with grants or any of that stuff?
I'm hoping to get up to 50% with the grant of the
And then when we
total
talk
cost.
about it, will you help, at least me personally, understand whether there's an ongoing cost? I remember your predecessor argued that there would be an ongoing cost for the use of body cameras, personnel evaluating the data. That, could you kind of just punch that up and just address it at the time? Don't do it now.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, guys and ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay, so your next budget is under
Thanks,
the
everybody.
wings of the fire department. The chief, the deputy chief, and their executive assistant is here this evening. The first budget in front of you is the ambulance service. If you recall, there was a warrant article last year That obviously cannot get rolled in here, so you see a significant increase. However, we were able to lock in the contracted price, so we're looking at an increase of, over last year, $27,000 in the ambulance service when you combine the warrant article.
If I may, point of order, maybe you haven't met our new executive assistant, Kaya Southwick,
Hi. Nice to
who
meet
hit the ground running, let's say that. Thank you, first of all. I guess, either I can give you a quick summary or just start firing away. I think Jim hit it on the head as far as the ambulance. The contract allowed for an increase of the Northeast Regional CPI or a maximum of 4%, and the CPI was 3.6, and that's the number you see in front of you.
Board members, any questions? We have gone over the contract at another board meeting. All right, we'll go over to fire and rescue.
Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a weird budget. If you recall, last year, there was the request for the third of 3 full-time firefighters to increase staffing. With the default budget, that was removed. Additionally, the money from the 2023 budget was removed as well. So you'll see an incremental increase in this budget for staffing that equates to a full-time person for a full year. So that is a large part of the increase. The department is currently made up of chief, the deputy chief in administration, an executive assistant who is now on board, 11 full-time firefighters, 1 proposed full-time firefighter. The benefits and salaries are up 5.2%. The operating budget is up 3.5%. The overall budget is up 4.7%, or $102,473. And again, the full-time staff is in negotiations right now for a updated collective bargaining agreement, which will be a standalone warrant article for raises for those individuals. With that said, budget's yours to go through, and the chief and the deputy, I'm sure, will be able to answer questions you have.
Okay, and I'm assuming all positions are filled?
I believe that they are, aren't they?
Today, yes.
Okay. All righty. 100
No,
series?
as of today, yes, they are.
100, nobody? 200? 300? 300. Medical services,
Knew that was coming.
does that have any? Ambulance service, no. Medical services, is that for,
Physical exams.
It's occupational health physicals. They are literally happening as we speak, and we haven't gotten our first bill yet. You'll see 99% of that disappear fairly shortly.
okay.
But we generally do it August, September, October timeframe.
Okay. So
8
you're
or
gonna
10
use
members
it-
have done it so far,
Okay.
and we just haven't gotten a bill yet from Clear Choice.
Don't get near it.
Get near the hydrant fee.
No, you don't.
Come on, let's talk about the hydrant fee.
All right, Paul, go ahead.
That's not.
Let's not. I'm not going to talk about the hydrant fee.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Your hole's going to get deeper.
400 series. Vehicle maintenance.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Are you haven't spent a whole lot? You have a bunch of services that need to take place, or?
Again, some of that is happening as we speak. We recently had our pump testing done and our things of that nature, and I don't believe all the bills have come in for that yet.
Okay, so you're expecting to get pretty close to what?
Reasonably close. We're doing
Okay.
pretty well. As you know, with the addition of Engine 3 and Engine 4 is gone, obviously we lost some of that expense, and Engine 3 being under warranty has been minimally costly.
So then I'll ask you whether you really need to increase it or whether, because this is going to be a very large budget. Would you take a look, can I put that on revisit and you take a look?
Sure.
on what you want to
In the
do?
end, what I think we tried to show was just an increase of some of the costs for the maintenance service. Some of our vendors have gone up somewhat on price and so forth. We did reduce at least one or two of the lines in the backup to reflect the fact that the average age of the fleet's a little bit newer than it was before.
Yeah, just take a look at it again, because if you can hold the line, it just helps us a little bit.
Put
How
that in the
about the
parking lot. Yeah.
How about the communications maintenance, 432? Nothing's been spent. Is this something else that's going to, it is significantly higher than what was budgeted?
That primarily reflects the addition of radio equipment for the proposed new hire that's in the budget. That's literally the difference.
But to Linda's point, if you're through September, you're $735 spent,
Yep.
and you're asking for 10 times that
Yep.
in a next year's budget. That's going to draw some
Yeah.
attention from ourselves as well as
Correct me
folks
if
down
I'm
the food
wrong,
line.
Chief, but if I recall, when we sat down and discussed this in the 2024 proposed budget, the vector scheduling app got removed
Yes.
to the tune of $4,000, and you've put that back into your 2025 proposed, correct?
Correct.
And that 4,000 was for stuff for the new hire? Is that what I'm,
No, we're proposing a new portable radio for the new hire. The other part of the communications line is the vector scheduling software that we proposed last year and was removed because of the default. We revisited it, updated the pricing and so forth. We have some backup material we can share with you if you'd like. What that allows us to do is automate some of the scheduling and so forth. For example, once we set it up with the parameters that we decide on, if we need to fill a shift because somebody took a leave day, the list of who is eligible first, second, third is already created. They get a message, they can respond in a set amount of time. I want it, I don't want it. If they don't respond, it moves on to the next person. We did pursue a discussion with the police department to see if it was something that we could piggyback onto theirs. Theirs is completely different. It's literally designed for police use and their schedules and so forth, which are different.
So is it that scheduling app, is it something that will be used on a regular basis, or is it?
Daily.
Daily.
I guess that's
Literally
regular
daily.
enough.
Yeah. So if it saves man hours, it
Well,
kind
that's
of,
the idea. Right now, for example, to determine or to keep track of who is next in line for an overtime shift, we use a popsicle stick with Velcro. And then if you take the shift, you go to the bottom.
Two popsicle sticks glued together with everybody's last name, and then I'm going down the list, contacting each and every one.
Right.
That
We've
sounds pretty
opened her
high-tech to me.
eyes since she started about how we keep track of that. But what that would allow us to do, again, is to set the parameters on how long you have to respond and so forth.
so you
And-
spend over $4,000 in labor a year.
Probably.
With popsicle sticks, making sure that everybody shows up when you need them.
Yes, yes. You should see how long it takes me to try to get someone.
This person has hit the ground running.
Yep.
So the actuals, though, you won't be spending the 3,000 on the radio in '24 because the new hire was taken out.
Correct.
Spoken like
So
a
the-
finance person.
this is for the new hire?
In '24,
25.
he's not going to spend that.
But in '25, you will.
For 25, he's asking for that
Right.
new person again and the
And the
scheduling
radio.
software.
And when the default budget came, that number went down.
Correct.
Higher land.
Right.
Got it.
Just make sure you prep that for the next visit you have.
Yep.
Okay, any others in the 400 series? 500 series? 600 series?
Yeah,
And I
the
have-
EMS supplies jumps from 802 to 4,000.
If you call, well, you weren't here last year, but we broke that out of where we were taking it before as a separate line, and then when the default budget happened, it kind of got put back in that line. So for the second year in a row, that looks like a new line. It was actually removed from, where were we getting that? Maintenance supplies, I think.
It says EMS.
To more accurately reflect what we spend on EMS supplies, we wanted to break that out.
What was the line?
615,
6:30, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
6:30?
from 6:30, it was moved to 6:15.
615.
Yes.
We have, I think, 2 more of those that come up, similar situation.
Okay. Any other? Okay.
So, but my only question is, if you took 2,000 out of maintenance supplies, it morphed into 4,000 in EMS supplies.
Loaves and fishes. How'd that happen?
I don't remember if we
Part of
took-
that increase was the anticipation of maybe having to supply an ambulance in the future.
If that is, any of that is for the ambulance, it should go up in that ambulance budget, that we don't
No, that's
start mixing.
it's a whole separate.
I thought last year you kind of explained, like, there is stuff that you do need as
Right.
firefighters when you show up at the scenes,
Right.
gloves or I don't know what else.
It's basically disposables. It's gloves,
Okay.
masks, AED pads and gauze and bandages and the kind of stuff we carry routinely.
So you had, and it went up $2,000, so there's that kind of an increase?
Generally, I think,
I think you had it as 2,000,
yeah, we
unless
we had
that
this
is,
conversation last
was
year. and there was
changed
a
in the
reason for it.
default budget.
That's okay. It was us.
So in '24, you have a $4,000 budget, you moved it down to 2,000, so they would expect to see 2,000 in EMS supplies, and they're seeing 4,000, so
So that's what we're
the
asking.
budget has gone up to, in those 2 line items, by $2,000.
Do-over, rethink, better explanation.
Made a note.
Okay, why don't we revisit those 2 lines? Well, really, what we have to revisit is 615,
Right.
because that has the 4,000.
But if
I'm practically eating it, I thought.
Stop looking away.
Paul?
So the EMS supplies, it's inelastic to the decision. In other words, whether you're in, you're not in the ambulance
Correct.
business.
That's stuff we use today.
You got a $4,000 thing, right? Is that what you were saying? Got it. Okay. Revisit it. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other in the 600?
31.
I have 682 uniforms. There was nothing in 2024. There's 21,700. Did this get moved from something?
You're correct. That's the same situation as the EMS supplies. That came from safety equipment. I think that was a town-wide thing that was done to break out uniforms from another line, just to be more reflective of the actual cost.
So these uniforms would or would not be related to an EMS decision?
These are not, this is
Inelastic.
this stuff.
No relationship.
Not related.
Got it. Thank you.
Any budget for ambulance would include
It's going to go in the
additional-
ambulance
Right.
budget.
But last year, we did try to break out, uniforms was being misposted under safety equipment. So
Right.
some departments moved it out, and then with default, it,
Okay.
kind of skewed it again.
Okay.
And then I do believe that there was some things that were in the ASME contract,
That is included in here, but yeah,
but you've gone up now. So
Yeah.
last year it was 55, now it's 54 and 22.
yes.
Okay, then let me go back to 680. And we have PPE replacement 10-year cycle, 42,400. Can you explain that?
That's protective gear, bunker gear, or protective clothing. As a general statement, it is time-sensitive. The standard requires it to be replaced 10 years or less. So what we find is about a third of our members can get 10 years out of a set of gear. about a third are probably 4 to 5 years, and the other third are somewhere in between. That's not just replacement. That is our replacement schedule and for any additional staff, and that includes a set for the proposed new hire.
How many of them are being replaced under the 10-year cycle? Are we talking?
Most, I can say.
So a 10.
Mine go 10 years because I don't crawl around on the floor as much as I used to in my position, but like I said, roughly a third. So with 21 responders, 5 or 6-ish tend to be a little sooner. Some people are harder on their gear than others at the end of the day. We do, that it does include repairs. We have been able to send gear liners and gear shells out for smaller repairs for a couple $100 here and there to try to get that as close to that 10-year life expectancy as we can. Mm-hmm. It just becomes a question sometimes. If we're in the 8th year and it's a $500 repair, does it make sense to put that kind of money into a set that's going to get retired?
So are we looking over the next 3 years, this is, have a number in there every year? Are we getting to the end of most of this replacement of the PPEs?
It's going to be a continuous expense. As we roll from year to year, we're replacing a certain number a year. We're using, for any new members, we have to, whether it's call or career, we have to outfit them. And you'll see the figure is head to toe, it's approximately $5,300 a piece. Yeah. And the union contract does call for 2 sets for each union member.
So
yeah, go
so
ahead.
that's a, at least that's a aha for me. So head to toe, the kit for an individual is $5,300.
Correct. That's helmet, gloves, boots, pants, liner, the whole bit.
That's good for the people out there to understand. You want to outfit a person, make them safe. 53 every 10 years, new kit, because stuff breaks, rips,
sure,
retired, whatever. Good.
And our supplier generally is Globe in Pittsfield, so our turnaround time for repairs tends to be reasonably fast compared to others.
Yeah.
And we, like I say, we are able to utilize them to do, seam repairs, things like that. Yeah. It's not something where you can just have a seamstress sew the things together. They have to meet standards and so forth. And again, it's a regular replacement cycle. And the union contract does require a second set for each union member, because once it's contaminated and we have to go through our process with the gear washer and stuff, they still have to be able to respond.
So to do some quick math, that would be 16, right, for the 7 + 1 firefighters you have, 16 sets. And do you have 1 set or 2 sets for call firefighters?
Generally 1.
So there's another 9.
So
he's...
if we have set on the shelf, so to speak, that fits, we will issue it. But we also have to be conscious, again, of that 10-year cycle.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is that if they're staggered, that if you do a bunch, if they're staggered over the 10-year, then it goes. Right. And this went up around, when you took out the other, this is only $1,000 less. You took out $21,000, so I'm kind of trying to figure out, was it in last year's budget? Is this something that because they're coming to the end of their life, we're getting hit with now, we'll get it the next couple of years?
Again, it's a rotation, so I think it's fair to say we're not replacing more. We do have an additional set proposed for that new hire. And also, it's actually expense-wise, it's a fairly minimal. I think it was $200 and change. We are going to the newer PFAS-free gear. If you're familiar with Forever Chemicals and so forth, and we don't have to go all the way down that rabbit hole. But the manufacturers have recently come up with gear that does not include any of that, and we have started to purchase that. The turnaround time's a little longer, or the order time, I should say. the intent would be after we go through a whole rotation, everybody's gear will be PFAS-free, but that'll take a couple of years to get to.
So in a couple of years, you'll be getting through everybody's gear.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess, and you're saying it's a 10-year cycle?
Right.
Maybe you need to take out the 10-year cycle, because some of them aren't 10. Some of them are 6, that may be
That's
what-
fair.
That's why I'm saying.
Again, that's the maximum.
I think the better word is ongoing.
Yeah, but that's an easy enough.
Yeah, let's take that, because that's what I'm
Yeah, no,
looking at.
fair
If
enough.
it's 10, I would look at, could we spread it out more? But what you're really telling me, it isn't a solid 10-year. It could be
It's not just
six.
everybody every 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I was
Right.
gathering
Okay.
from there. So let's just take those words out, and then I won't have
that's an
any
easy
more
fix.
issues. Okay,
Can I just,
yep.
Chief, how many sets of gear do you anticipate that you have on the shelf today that contain these PFAS forever chemicals?
We have very little gear on the shelf. I want to say we have, what, 2 or 3 jackets and a couple of pairs of pants. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a pointed question. As of the end of September, you've spent $28,000 on a $55,000 budget. What is your plan for the balance of the year? And can you get rid of these pieces of gear that currently contain these forever chemicals?
But we certainly could if it's on the shelf. It hasn't been issued. We, frankly, are planning to come to you in the next few days with a memo to purchase another set because the current order we have and the current approved purchase order, the gear we ordered then there has been put on hold by the manufacturer for additional testing of this PFAS-free liners. We just this week received an email to that effect from the manufacturer. What we would propose to do is come forward with an order for one individual who is owed a second set by contract that has reduced PFAS, with the idea that we would maintain the order that's in place, not knowing exactly when it may be delivered, probably well into 2025 at this point, and then make the adjustment to have his primary set be the PFAS-free set and try to put the
Thank you.
PFAS gear on the back burner a little bit.
Yep.
So I just want to follow the ball here. So Jim asked you, can you go buy 3 new jackets? And your answer is no.
I'd want to review.
I need one more, I'm just trying to see what you said. I need one more kit by contract for an individual, and I'm going to come to you with a letter. Is that
Right, well, we've already ordered that set for that individual, but that order won't be delivered for an indeterminate period of time right now. We expect to hear more, but
But the direct answer to the direct question is, can you buy 3 more jackets? The answer is no.
I don't want to say that. We'd have to review the budget and where we are, and it's certainly possible. It
I think
wouldn't be
what Jim's
just
saying
jackets,
is,
though. It would have to be
can
full
you spend the
set.
money between now and the end of the year?
And we'd also have to review who's next up in terms of replacement. Obviously, if we're going to replace it, we want to replace the oldest stuff first, generally.
Right. But
We do annual
So what-
testing in-house. If you might remember, a few years ago, we were able to purchase a hydro tester. That is how we determine whether something has to go out for repairs. If a seam is split, but it's not visible to the naked eye, it doesn't pass our in-house test, and we ship it back to Globe for them to analyze, and generally, they can repair it for fairly short money, but occasionally, they say it's out of service.
So why don't we just add it to the revisit list?
Yeah, no, we can come back, we can certainly look at where we are. I try to keep roughly the equivalent of a set, money-wise, undesignated until we get close to the end of the year, in case somebody has a traumatic failure of gear, we have an incident where it literally gets torn or something, and we've got to make a more or less unexpected purchase.
So we're going to revisit 680 and 682?
We were going to revisit 680, because that's where the question is.
Right.
The The other one is, they just took something to the other number.
680.
800? Any other questions on fire and rescue?
Well, no, I did have a question about the contract, and I'm sorry I wasn't prompt in asking it. No?
Any other questions? I think it falls under that.
Okay. Chief, the 777 contract versus the one last year, is there anything in or not in the 77 contract that was in or not in the one last year?
Other than the dates, start date, end date, there is language in the 2025-26 contract that allows us to renegotiate the fee with stewards should we place one or more ambulances in service as a municipal department.
I was more hunting on is there a difference in the service metrics?
No.
Okay, so on a duck-to-duck, operationally, it's the same document.
Literally identical except for that language.
The start date, end date, and some provisions for other things.
Should we?
Which are kind of like Ts and Cs, but the operational.
The same.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Okay. Emergency management?
Slight reduction here. This is a very small budget, $4,310.
100 series?
14.
200 series? 300 series? 600 series? 700 series? 800 series? Any questions?
Question.
Yep.
Long ago and far away, maybe this was during COVID, I remember in probably a part of my mind that there was grant monies for fitting out an EOC. Is that still out there, grant opportunities for fit out of an emergency
We
operations?
applied for an emergency management performance grant, which covers the new generator for the new public safety building and the upfit of the new emergency operations center.
Furniture, stuff like that?
Typically, no. It's more data ports and TVs and monitors and
so
stuff like that. It was granted. I've done the first quarterly status report. The long and the short of it is we are in discussions with Homeland Security at the state level to determine how they want to document that expense so they can then send the check. Because it's an ongoing project and not just, we purchase a generator, it costs this much, we pay for it, the state writes us a check to reimburse it. We have the generator, but we don't have the EOC yet. So I'm having a conversation with our representative on what sort of documentation they want and when to actually release the funds.
So the answer is, without a promise that there's something forthcoming, you're in the middle of having meaningful discussions with the right agencies about getting some compensation.
Yeah, it was awarded by the governor and council. It's just a matter of documenting how.
Got it.
They have to show, we have to show them that we spent it, and then they write us a check.
Save the answer, you'll get asked down the street for.
Yep. And that was approximately 102,000 and change. It's a 50-50. The actual submittal was 204,000, and our share was.
Not an insignificant amount of money.
Correct.
Good, thank you.
And that's on top of the million that you have.
That's a separate grant from, I don't know if PD's still here, but the one that Captain Livy was working on, which was in the neighborhood of $1 million, as I understand.
I just want the public to realize we have two different.
We are pursuing anything we
Yeah.
can find in terms of grant reimbursements and so forth.
And can I ask a question? The $2,700 that you spent
Yep.
in 380, wasn't that also for?
It's related. If you remember at the last minute, kind of last year, as part of that actual grant application, the state determined that they wanted us to update our hazard mitigation plan and our emergency operations plan to maintain eligibility for that EMPG grant. I don't want to get all the alphabet soup, but for the grant for the generator and the EOC. So we came in with a request for the 2750 for the cost of the update of the emergency operations plan. We spent the first half of that as the deposit, and I believe just the other day we received a draft. The deputy and I are reviewing it. We'll send it out to the local emergency operations committee for their, put some eyeballs on it and make suggestions. As a result of anything that we may get in feedback, send it back to the vendor, and then at some point reasonably soon, we expect to bring it to you for your consideration and approval. Hazard mitigation is underway. We're meeting monthly. They expect that to be complete in the spring, because it's got to go through the whole FEMA process to be approved. The emergency operations plan, as I understand it, gets approved at the state level, but the hazard mitigation plan goes all the way to FEMA. It's well underway. The state is aware, so they've told us we would be eligible for these grants because we've committed to having those updates done. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, emergency management, or anything else you've forgotten? Okay, next one, public safety building.
Okay.
This is a challenge.
So the public safety building budget, as you can probably well imagine, there are some increases here associated with the new building coming online. So the overall budget is a 63.6% increase for $40,202, with a large amount of that being for propane and diesel. Chief will be able to answer questions that you may have.
Okay,
I will fix the top line that says 636 is not coded to be in the 600s, so I will fix that.
okay, so.
Thank you.
So it's a coding.
Yes.
This will go here.
What number are you going to give it?
Oh, it goes down into the 600s.
You're
Oh,
going
it's
to pick it
just-
up and move it.
It's still 636.
Yeah,
It's
it's
still
636, but it's not in your sub-series because
Okay.
it wasn't set up properly.
Okay, gotcha. We'll do that one 600 series up at the beginning, the diesel. Anybody have any question with that?
That is the new generator. That's the fuel for the generator. The old one was propane. This one is diesel.
Okay. 400 series,
435.
$435.
So just help me understand why it goes from 11.8 to 30 grand. New building, aren't the windows supposed to be all curtains and everything's there? What's up?
Long and short of it, we requested that the, what number is that?
It says biweekly cleaning contract for
435.
finishing $18,000.
We had our architect draw up I'll call it a clean floor plan for the 2 floors of the building without all the gibberish. And we've shopped around in consultation with the police department to our current building cleaner and anyone else who cared to respond, a proposal for weekly, bi-weekly, monthly cleaning of different areas similar to what we do today. And the short answer is it's a bigger building with more areas
Is
to
this a shared
clean.
expense with the police department?
Yeah, that's why it's in the public safety building budget. That's probably the biggest thing. The other, generally speaking, is if you're familiar, when the parking lot was dug up as part of the initial construction, pretty much the entire rear of the building between the back of the apparatus bay and the neighboring properties off Goodrich Road, everything under that pavement is part of the Vortex stormwater management system, up to and including the point where we have to fabricate protective barriers for the generator because we can't put bollards in front of it because you're digging into the stormwater management. In consultation with Norway Plains, the site engineers, I got the name of 2 companies who do the maintenance on those types of systems. One responded. They actually responded after this was submitted. Their initial proposal was approximately $4,000. I had to put a number in to get this in on time. I think we can work with that. I did have a conversation with Public Works Director Randall about the catch basin cleaning portion of this to see if it's something we could integrate with them. He suggested we budget for the whole thing, at least at the beginning, and if the timing and such was right when they had the catch basin cleaning trucks, he'd certainly be willing to help us, but in the interest of full disclosure, we wanted to try to budget for the cleaning. As I understand it, they will have to clean out the catch basins. They will literally go in and inspect the collection facility, determine does it need to be quote unquote vacuumed out, has it collected silt and so forth that we're trying to capture before it leaves the site. My gut tells me the first one will be nasty because of the construction that's going on. And then at some point in the future, I think it kind of level out in terms of what we're seeing. The proposal from the company is a little bit a la carte, so we may be able to pick and choose what we do. But I mean, in the interest of maintaining this new facility, we felt it appropriate to put a number in there to reflect it's something we're going to have to do going forward.
And that's the general repairs and maintenance, the 4,000?
No, there's a separate line labeled in the backup labeled stormwater system maintenance.
Which said 3,000, but you said 4,000, that you had to plug in a number that was 4,000.
They kind of ghosted us a little bit over the summer, and I finally got a response from the gentleman who was preparing it and sent him all the information and stuff, and he came back with, it was approximately 4, but like I say, it's kind of an a la carte thing, so in all honesty, I think we can work with the 3 to get us past the construction and then come up with a regular program.
And there's also some in the front of the building also.
Correct, but the biggest part of it is in the rear.
I just want to make sure that that's included in what you're talking about here.
No, the intent was the whole site. They have the whole site plan and they've reviewed it.
Yeah, and that's important that we do that. Probably one of the biggest ones here we need to make sure.
Linda, I have one question. Under building maintenance, it says biweekly cleaning, and then it says a quantity of 48 times. I'm confused how biweekly gets to 48.
I think that my intent there was to reflect that we are, as of now, being told we will be in the Phase 2 section of the building in the second or third week of February, so I put 48 weeks rather than 52, because the month of January will still be where we are.
I think Casey's math says biweekly equals 24.
Well,
I don't know what.
to be honest, the biweekly may have just been a cut and paste from previous backup.
So you believe it's weekly? It's weekly cleaning?
Well, some of it's weekly. So it's not every area is weekly. The lobby's weekly. The hallways are weekly. I think we came up with most of the offices will be every other week. We tried to not just do everything every time frankly, to save a little bit of money. Try to look at the high traffic areas, have them more often, and the lower traffic areas a little less often. Keeping in mind, too, we now have locker rooms that we didn't have in the previous building.
I'm just thinking the word biweekly.
Sure, and we can make that go away.
Well, I think that on 435, I think we need to take out bi-weekly, and we should list which ones are going to be done weekly, which are
I
going
have a map I can show you.
Well, or you can just put them down.
Yeah.
X number of rooms, so that it makes sense. So when this is going to be an increase, and the budget committee is going to ask, let's put that information, because I think bi-weekly is what's going to get
fair
triggered.
enough.
So if we'll revisit that, and you can just list them out. Does everybody agree on that?
I agree.
Does staff do any cleaning details in the building?
I can't speak for the PD. On the fire side, we have daily chores that include sweeping and mopping and cleaning the bathrooms and so forth.
Apparatus.
But what we're talking about here is more of a deep clean, if you will.
Okay.
Rather than the everyday dusting and mop the floor.
Anything else? Anything else in the 400 series? 600 series? And there we have the 638 propane, and that is an estimate, the best you could do.
Essentially, because we don't have a history, that is a budget for one fill-up of the tank of the new generator. It's full now. It's run minimally. It's probably run more for weekly testing than it has to power the
That's right.
building, but it has run to power the building.
Okay.
It was just talking to the vendor and so forth. It was frankly a best guess until we have some history to judge it from. If we have a good year weather-wise, it's probably plenty. If we have a bad year, we may need to adjust.
How many gallons?
That's 660 gallons. That's what the tank holds, plus or minus. No, I thought he was talking about the diesel.
6,
Talking propane?
Correct.
yeah.
636 or 338. If you look in the backup, we asked the engineer who designed the HVAC system to estimate propane use and electricity use, if you go back earlier. Again, because we don't have a 5-year average, we don't have any history of this new building. And frankly, that's the number he came up with. More of the facility runs on propane than the old one used to. The heat, the hot water is all propane fired versus electric in the old case for the most part. But we had him run the numbers based on the cost per kilowatt hour and his anticipated usage and degree days and however the engineers do that, and that's literally the number he came up with. We felt that would be a good place to start until we generate a history of the building.
Did they give you, or are they going to give you a maintenance schedule for all your equipment? I like your
We've been
air
having that
exchanger.
conversation. A lot of the comfort heat, if you will, and cooling are mini splits, which once they're up and running, a minimal maintenance. But I think one of the things we're working through with CCI is to kind of come up with a master list, if you will, and then shop around to vendors, and I'm not aware of any specific annual maintenance for the HVAC system, the mini split systems, unless we need a repair, we have a leak or something.
You have an air exchanger? I mean, like this?
There are air exchangers.
And they have certain maintenance
Sure.
times?
Well, once we get to that point, the intent would be to see if we can, maybe we do an RFP to come up with a vendor who can do its entirety rather than picking and choosing.
What they did with the POP was they were able to put together a series of binders that had every piece of equipment that was installed for the facility. They provided 2 copies, hard copies, and an electronic version that gets handed off.
Okay.
Right, and
so we'll get
CCI,
that.
same company, the conversation we've had was that we'll be doing the same thing. And we
Perfect.
will get a recommended maintenance schedule and so forth.
Got it.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, so you have one capital outlay from the fire department on page 17 of the capital outlay, which is titled Replacement of Car 1.
Car 1 is a 2015 Ford Expedition. Its normal replacement schedule has been on a 10-year cycle, and that's what we're proposing to continue. If you look in the backup material, we have received an email from the town's chief mechanic who essentially said the rust is getting to the point where he's concerned that without major outlay of repair money, he wouldn't be able to put a sticker on it next time around. So it kind of coincides with the 10-year proposed replacement. The replacement number includes, well, we have, the number in the backup is last year's state bid price. We are still waiting for the next state bid price. They had indicated it wasn't dramatically different from what you'll see in front of you. And that also includes installation and moving a radio over and that sort of thing.
What year is your current car?
2015.
How many miles on it?
Miles about 48,000. It doesn't have an hour meter. I can tell you it's got significant hours because obviously it idles at every call we go to.
And what will you do with that? Trade in, sell?
Presumably, we would try to get what we could in a trade-in. Again, the estimate we received for the absolute complete repair of the rust was in the neighborhood of $10,000, and I don't know that we want to spend that kind of money on a vehicle of that vintage.
Yeah.
So I think the intent would be to take whatever we could get in trade. I wouldn't imagine it'd be much.
I'd like to revisit this. This is $10,000. And you have what is it, radios that you're asking also for, that went to the CIP?
Right.
At 215, which was coming out of cash. It was not coming
Right.
out of a capital reserve. And so I'm concerned about the amount of money we're asking for a car and the radios in a year that we're going to have a very high budget. And so I'm concerned about that. $10,000 to push it off a year or two and get us through. The taxpayers are going to get hit with the second part of the bonding for the public safety building this year. And so I would like to see if we can move this out. So I would like this for the board to revisit, think about it.
Who do you use for, like, that rust inspection repair? Is it the local guy in town?
I think the estimate came from, help me out, the shop next to the highway garage?
Accidents happen.
Accidents happen.
Okay.
Because when Ben had it for routine service, he had Rob come over and look at it and work up an estimate.
Okay.
Is it possible that we can do it for somewhat less and not be 100%? Possibly, but that was the number that came out of it.
I think we've really got to watch how much we're going to be asking for. That's the reason going to have you have a CIP removal, and then you have the radios, and they're hitting the bond, and there's an increase in the public safety building, and we still don't know what's going to happen with the ambulance. And there's a point where if we ask for too much, we get a default budget.
And we don't know what's coming our way from other department heads, so we're going to have to do, at least for me, pairwise analysis. Do you want one of these, or do you want one of those? One of them has to go away. Which one do you want? And I agree with Linda. Let's put it on the revisit list. But you can't. The only thing I would say is we can't half fix your car.
Well, I don't mean
fix
that.
it, you're not.
There's certain things to get it past inspection, I
We're not
guess,
going
that
to
have
ask
to
you
be
to
done.
fix the left-hand side where the rod is, and leave the right-hand side alone so the door
The
falls.
rocker panels, I guess, are the issue.
I think we ought to have, in my personal opinion, I think we ought to have a conversation that says, do you want that, or do you want that? And that ought to cross department lines, unfortunately, but that's probably how we may have to tee things up. Thank you, Linda. I do agree we should revisit it.
Is everybody
That should
okay?
cover all of your budget items for this evening.
Okay. All righty. I guess it's time to have a motion to go into non-public.
Moved.
Second.
And a motion by Paul, second by Dave.
Yes.
All
Yes.
those, yes? Yes. Okay.
Thank you for sharing your
Thank you,
microphone.
guys. You're welcome.
Thanks for sharing the microphone.
Anytime.